Hi, Peter Charles here of Hooked Fly Fly Fishing, and today we're going to tie Carmichael's mallard streamer. Now, if you have seen some of my other videos, you see that I use a lot of bucktail, a lot of calftail. Well, in this particular streamer, there's no wing. We're using a mallard collar instead, and if you've ever used mallard on a streamer, you know it's highly effective. Mallard barring has a kind of a shimmer when you pull it through the water. So it should be a good pattern. And it's not too difficult. You should be able to knock them together pretty quick. So let's get started with the Carmichael's mallard streamer. We're going to use a size 4 streamer hook here, 2 extra heavy, 5 extra long. Our thread is 8/0 Veevus in black. We're going to use red saddle for the tail. The body is a deep yellow. That's what the pattern calls for, is they want more of a goldy yellow. We're going to use mylar. You could also use wire as well. And we're going to use the gold side. And as I said before, we're going to use a mallard flank feather for the collar. So let's get started. Now with the yarn body, we don't have to be fussy. Just wind back. Stop about the hook point. Now this particular red tail is not very long and not very pronounced, so we're going to keep it relatively short. Pinch loop it. That looks pretty good. Trim off the excess. Now for our rib. Now for the yellow wool. Now one thing you can do is put this in a bobbin. We're putting a lot of wool on here, so it can be difficult to figure out how much to take out. So if you're going to use a lot of wool in a body, putting it in a bobbin is not a bad idea. Now, before I get started, normally if I was just putting one layer of wool, I would not want to put yellow over black. I'd use white thread and put the wool over that. But because I'm using 3 layers here, not so worried about that. The first pass I'm going to put on is going to be tight. And if it moves the tail, take a moment to put the tail back, because we have a bump there. And I want to squish down over that bump. I don't want that bump to show up afterwards. So nice tight wrap in there. And once you come off the bump, you can slack off the tension. Just use the tension of the bobbin. Okay, now for the rib. Just put a wrap at the back. Make sure it doesn't mess up the tail. Then come forward. Okay, let's take a moment to talk about the mallard feather that I'm going to use. You can see that mallard has a fairly thick quill down here. So if I was to try to wind that on, it's going to be very bulky. So what I've done is I've stripped all the barbs away, getting down to where it's a little bit thinner, where I can, get some wrapping in there without too much bulk. And then I'm going to tie it in by the tip, and I've also stripped one side. So I'm going to tie the tip in here. I'm just going to fold this back, and then I'm going to cut it off. That prevents the tip from pulling out. And I'm going to wind this back to the starting point, then bring my thread forward. So when you're doing mallard collars, you will find that those thick quills will build up bulk. So it's handy to try to slim them down as much as possible. Go as far into the tip as you possibly can. And the other thing is, I highly recommend using hackle pliers for this. It'll make the job easier with this quill. Now take a moment to try to straighten up the barbs as much as you can, because we want these barbs to lay back. Always make your pass in front of the previous. Keep those barbs flowing nicely backwards. Wouldn't break. Mallard quills, as I say, can be quite thick. So this becomes a spot where you're going to end up with an ugly bump, but sometimes it's pretty hard to avoid. If you can get them to break, great, but a lot of the time you just have to cut them off, which results in a bump. So what you're going to do is, at the back of the head, just build up some thread at the back of the head and try to overcome that bump. Now I'm going to take a moment I'm just going to brush that mallard feather back, try to separate the barbs. Now what I'm going to do is going to come in here with my last few wraps, some soft wraps, and go over the back to help those barbs lay down. Okay, now we can whip finish. Okay, now for some head cement. Okay, there we have Carmichael's mallard streamer. If you find some of the barbs are sort of splaying on you, they will lay down. You can coax them down. Also, the first time you fish it, it'll flatten out. It'll be look good. So don't worry about that too much. This is what it's supposed to look like. But if they flare up on you, as I say, don't worry. It's a soft material. As soon as you get in the water, they'll flow back. They'll look good. And then once you've fished it once, they'll stay that way. So this is the general appearance. I have not dressed this very heavily with the mallard. If you want, you could dress it more heavily. I think it looks good like this. And, you know, as I say, I like mallard in streamers. It's a material that looks good. Teal is another one that looks good, too. So, you know, have a go. Try it. It's a simple streamer. You can knock them off quickly. And I have done well. If you've looked at my mini brown fly, it's the same color scheme as this. And it works phenomenally well. Same idea. I used gold wire, gold yarn, mallard wing, and red tail, and bam, fish after fish after fish. The old professor, same color scheme. So give it a try. Cheers.